excited to have Brooks Bendix with us. She is a master social worker of therapology. So it's great to have you with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. I was reading your bio, and you're a former camp counselor. What was that like growing up?
Well, thank you for having me this morning. Yes, I was a former camp counselor for several years, many years. I went to camp for as a camper for almost a decade and then was a counselor after that. And that's really where I learned a lot of my skills to be able to, and my passion for working with kids and teens, to be able to handle and manage a lot of the emotional and behavioral issues from the time I was 17 to about 22 years old, and then went into starting my career.
See, we never imagine that those early experiences in our life are going to put us on our long-term path and our journey of life of helping others. So that is great to know as well. So, do you mainly try to focus on teenagers because they're a lot different than when we were kids?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and sometimes I say some of the same terminology that they use, and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" Yes, most of my clientele I focus on are between the ages of 4, so pretty young, up until about 22, 23, so like post college. And I see the gamut of issues right now. A lot of it's focused on anxiety and depression, and a lot of social isolation.
What is your advice to them as well as their parents? Because I think we all thought this was going to be maybe a month or 2 months, but we're going into 7 months of this. So I think
Mhm.
what's even making it harder is we can't even give them an end date as to when this is going to end. What advice are you giving to your clients, but as well to their parents who are navigating this new world along with them?
So the big thing is that we as mental health clinicians are also experiencing this along with them. So the biggest thing that I say to my clients, the kids, the teens, the parents, is to validate their emotions. What they're experiencing right now is unprecedented. We've never been through it before. The uncertainty of all of it, what we don't know when this is going to end or what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. So validating their feelings that this is hard, this is challenging, and that they have somebody with them to support them. I tell that to parents as well, that to focus so much on their academics and their grades right now seems a little bit unrealistic because they don't have a sense of safety and security. So we need to allow them to feel that first and foremost before we can dive in and focus on their academics. As long as they're waking up in the morning, maybe getting outside, getting some physical activity, and seeing their friends in some capacity, whether it's virtual or getting outside from a distance, that's getting them through the day.
I have been seeing, like, my Facebook feed is filled with parents who feel like they are failures right now because they're having to try to work remotely but also homeschool, and they can't give their children the attention they need. They know they are struggling. What can we do to try to come together as one to get them through this time, which we hope doesn't last much longer?
Really, as I said, not only validating our children's feelings, but parents as well. Every parent, every family is different and unique, and they all have their own challenges, whether they're working from home and they don't have any kids, or they have 4 or 5 kids from preschool age to high school and college. Everyone has their own individual family journey that they're on, and their own rules, restrictions that they're abiding by, whether they have a family member who's immunocompromised or not, but really providing that support and understanding. Because as much as each family is very different in how they're going about this, we're all really experiencing it together. So I think really opening up an ear and listening to each other as parents and providing that support.
What do you suggest to parents is should they let their kids know that they're anxious as well and they're going through this for the first time, or should they kind of put up that facade that, hey, I'm here, we're going to get through this, I'm the rock of the family, but maybe then, express their anxiety to maybe their family members or their girlfriends or their other friends? What is the suggestion in that arena?
Well, I always tell parents that modeling is the best thing that we can do for our kids and our teens. Model how we can handle this and how we can approach it. That will teach them resilience. So if we're expressing to them that mom or dad feels a little bit nervous or anxious in how we're handling it, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to go for a walk and get some fresh air because I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now and I'm about to have a breakdown. That's modeling positive behavior, that I can do something about it, that I can take control. I can go outside, get some fresh air, get some exercise. And holding that in almost provides them with a sense of, well, my parents, my mom or dad is not necessarily feeling the same way that I'm feeling. So I should hold that in too. It provides them, it encompasses like a sense of shame around it, that what everyone is going through right now we've never experienced. So it is normal. It is normal to feel anxious and have a sense of insecurity. But as parents, what we can model and show them is absolutely significant during this time. And it's okay to validate, use words to label those feelings and those emotions, and then show them what they can do to handle it.
Brooke Bendix with us. She is a licensed master social worker therapology, joining us this morning on the Oakland County Megacast. Brooke, let's talk about social media's impact on kids and their mental health during this crisis. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, social media has always had an impact of, it shows the best of people's lives, doesn't show the worst necessarily of their lives, and so those that are viewing it at their low points tend to have a fear of missing out or have some sort of, not necessarily jealousy, but they want to be in the same happy position as what they're seeing their friends and their family and other people they're acquainted with on social media. How has that been inflated, if at all, during this pandemic, and how has social media taken a further toll on the mental health of kids and even adults during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I'd say social media and technology altogether has taken a huge toll on teens' mental health right now. We've seen it used kind of as a platform, as a way for them to communicate, to connect, and also just to get their message out there about what they're going through and what they're feeling. Excuse me. On the other hand, there's also a lot of negative comments too that can come with all of that, with putting your message out there, where excuse me, where they're bringing that on to them, not bringing them on to themselves, they're bringing that on by putting messages out there on social media where they not necessarily understand how to grasp all of that with the negative comments, because there's a lot. And I've seen a lot of teens put their message out there about what they're experiencing and get a lot of negative feedback. So I've seen a lot of kids grow, their anxiety grows even more with this, with social media. And I've seen kids being on their phone for upwards of 7 or 8 hours a day, all day, because they're not getting outside, they're not in school, they don't have that break. And I take that back, that they're not in school, they're not in the physical building for school. So there's a difference being at home. I've heard a lot of kids where they're supposed to be on their Zoom classrooms and they're really on their phones and they're on social media and they're taking a lot of breaks from their Google classrooms and Zoom classrooms, and they're consuming themselves with social media. So I've seen a lot of anxiety increase with that, and even more so feelings of social isolation. So, the impact of social media has been both a, a positive in the sense where they're able to connect and get their message out there, what they want to portray. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of issues with decreased self-esteem and increase of anxiety, depression, even, because what they're seeing is a lot of negative feedback around social media.
Yeah, and Brooke, one of the things I worry about too, especially now with the Zoom classrooms in which you're required to attend, some of these kids come from different backgrounds. And what is in your background, people are paying attention to that. I will say every time I see an interview or whatever, that's one of the first things you look at is the person's background behind them. And I worry about the social economic differences between some of these kids that are in the classrooms, because it's different to know you in a school atmosphere, but now I'm basically inviting you into my home. And my background when you're a child matters. And I feel like there could be new judgment and new stereotypes put on some of these kids, which is a new added pressure on top of all of this, and it has nothing more to do than what's in the background of their virtual classroom. Are you seeing that?
Well, I'd say not only the virtual background, but talk about audio. So, I've heard of a couple of kids and teens, where they each have designated areas in the house. But, if they're not on mute, then whatever's happening and going on in the house, the entire classroom can hear that. So I've heard stories from teens and young adults in college where they're on their Zoom classes and they can hear what's happening in another classroom, another student's house at that time if they're not on mute. So it's both not only the visual, but I'd say even more so is the audio part, is that we're really getting an idea of what's going on in students' homes. I know from the very beginning of the shelter in place, when I was either at my office or at my home, my clients would look around, they'd be like, oh, yeah, look, and try and see what was in my house. And so you're getting a much more intimate look into kids, adults, homes, when we're working from home. So it's a very different feel now that we're not in the classroom or we're not in the workplace, is that we're basically in our personal lives and still continuing to be in school or at work.
How do we teach our kids to have enough self-confidence that they can stand up to this new world of, I don't want to say it's a form of bullying, but it is more of a form of, people judging you. So is there a way to, as a parent, if I'm listening to this, what would you say to them to give them tips for their kids, to give them the tools that they need to shield off the judgment of other people? And in the same word as that is, what would you give to parents to use those tools as well?
Well, what I think we are creating right now is the next generation, as I hope, we're creating a generation of resilient kids. Because what we are going through in this global pandemic and these uncertain times, the terminology that we use on a regular basis is the next generation, Gen Z, of resilience. And as parents, we need to teach them and educate them that this is how we're going to do it. We need to be able to model to them that we're taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. we're going to be more present in the moment and not focus on what's going to happen tomorrow or the next week or the next school year, whether that means going off to college or not, because we don't know. But building that confidence comes with resiliency and strength. So being able to overcome these challenges and these adversities and support one another and connect is probably the most important thing, because kids are resilient by nature. And if we show them that it's okay to break down every once in a while, it's okay to feel nervous and anxious, it's okay, I say this all the time, it's okay to not get a 4.0 GPA or get straight A's right now. We need to focus on their safety, their security, their sense of well-being. And as parents, we're going to continue to support them in that and build their resilience so that they can be the next generation of voters, of lawyers and doctors and politicians, whatever that may be in their world, and that they can be successful.
Brooke Bendix with us, a licensed master social worker with therapology, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Brooke, just another couple minutes with you before we have to let you go and move forward. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today, or any other information or advice for our audience, teens, adults, parents, whatever the case may be, that you believe would be important for them to know at this moment in time?
I would just say really taking it one day at a time, and as parents, validating their kids' feelings and emotions, and knowing that any sort of anxiety or feelings of nervousness and uncertainty is absolutely normal. And if we can all kind of support each other in that process and stay very focused on the present day, that would be the best thing, I'd say, in terms of moving forward.
Brooke Bendix with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We so appreciate your time and all of your advice as well. We wish you the best as this crisis continues to go on. I'm sure it's not easy for you as well. Are you pretty much doing your programs in virtually, or are you in person now as well?
So I am about, because of the nature of my clientele, I'm about 80% in person. So I do have young kids and teens coming into my office and taking all the necessary precautions and wearing masks. I've been doing it since about July, since the summer, since July. And the other 20% is virtual.
What's the difference been for you or trying to help these kids and teenagers virtually versus in person? Is there a difference in the services or how they receive what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. I was very eager to get back into my office and to start seeing my clients in person. I know many of my colleagues still are continuing to provide virtual telehealth therapy. But for me, I made the decision to return back to my office. And I had many parents and kids asking me when I was going to be back in my office. It's a huge difference to be able to see somebody face to face in person and see their mannerisms and get a sense of how they really are doing. I remember the first week that I came back into my office in person and all masked up and from a distance and cleaning and everything. And I had a teen say to me, "I wish I could give you a hug. I wish I could have that physical interaction and that contact, because it feels so good to see another human being right now."
Oh, that has to be hard for you to hear, right?
You do get a sense of that they really truly need that interaction, that human contact, because it was so different. And I'm so grateful and happy to be able to provide that support even virtually for them from a distance. But I will say that it was absolutely night and day between doing virtual telehealth to being in person and being able to see face to face really truly how they are doing.
Well, Brooke, we appreciate your time and all of your advice as well, and we wish you the best of luck, as well as so many of these kids and these families continuing to navigate this crisis. It has to be so hard for them.
Yes,
Virtual learning and virtual therapy is just cannot replace in person. So we hope that they come out stronger on the other end.
I do too. Thank you so much for having me.